tryna touch it. Kiss up and rub up and fill up. Kiss up and rub up and fill up on you. Give you some time to think that I can trust you. Again, I'm gonna kiss up and rub up and fill up. Kiss up and rub up and fill up on you all night.
Welcome to the Zono Sports Show, where you know Zonos. I'm glad you guys joined me today. We got a few things to talk about. We've got an action-packed weekend here around the country, here around the city. Now, first off, we'll start with last night's action on ESPN. Houston, number 6 team in the country, versus Cincinnati. I watched a little bit of that game. Greg, wait a minute, Ward. The reason I call him that, he's yelling out to Lamar. Lamar! Come out, wherever you are. Because I will tell you this, Lamar Jackson, they consider you the front runner for the Heisman right now. Greg Ward Jr. is right hot on your heels. Now, last night he had 1 TD, 1 passing TD, 2 picks, but also he had 2 late rush TDs, and they actually outscored Cincinnati 28-6 in the fourth quarter. It was a tight game throughout. Cincinnati played great defense throughout the game. However, Greg Ward and the Cougars found a way at the end of the game to close out what they started. 28 points in the fourth quarter. That's championship football. They were able to end all that, all the naysayers who say Houston can't run the table. Houston doesn't have what it takes. They've won every week since the Oklahoma game. They beat Lamar, then they beat Cincinnati. They have a favorable schedule. They need Louisville to win games. They need Oklahoma to win games because Oklahoma's got the big game this weekend. We'll get into that later. But I really think resilience. You know, Houston's a resilient team. Cincinnati was on them like jeans on a cowboy. Now, I will say that the championship hopes, they're alive, and so is the Heisman. We'll have to see how the season develops. Can Greg Ward Jr. continue to play at this level? I really liked the way he played last night in the closing minutes of that game, putting that game away in the fourth quarter easily by scoring those 2 touchdowns on the ground. He's a phenomenal athlete. When he goes, Houston goes. So I'm really looking forward to see how Greg Ward develops as a player throughout the season because he's a veteran guy on that team. However, when you become that veteran guy and you get into that national spotlight on a Heisman-type scale, you gotta play when the time counts. So Greg Ward, hope he continues to carry that team. I really like watching Houston. They're a fun team to watch, and you can tell they're enjoying it. They had the pick 6 last night with Stephen Taylor, the linebacker. Then they come right back the next possession, take it back to the crib. So I really look forward to watching that defense the rest of the year because they put on dominant efforts. We saw it against Oklahoma, saw it against Cincinnati. I'm looking forward to see what they can do. Maybe they'll continue to get better as a defense, as a unit. So we'll have to see. Now we move on to the NFL. Last night there was some Thursday night heat. Jets versus Bills. Jets won that game 37-31. Brandon Marshall, hope he's okay. He came back in the game. He looked like he got hurt for a minute, but he did come back into the game. Rex, you're on the hot seat, sir. Now, the reason I say that, you're 0-2. Now, Tyrod Taylor, he had an okay game, had 3 TDs, 1 pick. He got hurt on a questionable play. The ref, Ed Hockley, had to get him checked out. I think they're really trying to pay attention to that concussion protocol, which I understand. Being a former college linebacker, you get a little bit dinged up. I didn't have many of those concussions because, you know, I tried to lay a boom to the guy. But I will say that I'm glad the NFL is paying attention to that because that's something that has really threatened the game of football. So I'm glad they're actually handling that intricately, taking their time to assess different players' injuries and having that concussion protocol specialist on the sidelines. So I can't be too mad at that. Magic Matt. Now, the reason I call him Magic Matt is because he was stripping defenses of their dignity. Now, Mr. Matt Forte had 3 rushing TDs, only 100 yards on the ground, but those 3 TDs, it says that he knows how to find the end zone. That's a great addition for the Jets, for them to get him to come over from the Bears. That's somebody who's going to continue to make them grow as an offensive unit, gives them a different element to their offense, especially with having Chris Ivory hurt. He did come back, but having Chris Ivory hurt and having a veteran like Matt Forte to step in, longtime Chicago Bear great, he is going to be key for that Jets offense? Can he balance it out for Fitzpatrick? Because Fitzpatrick, I think he's a good quarterback. I think he deserves his money. However, Magic Matt, the defense stripper, he will be an integral role in that offense. So I look forward to seeing what Matt Forte continues to bring. They can pass him the ball in the flats. They can play with him in the screen game. So I think that those are things that Bilal Powell, he's okay at. But Matt Forte, he specializes in that. We saw that for years in Chicago. Now, I also want to talk about a new vacation spot. That new vacation spot, it's an island called Revis. Now, Darrelle Revis, last night you had a tough game, my brother. Marquise Goodwin catches the long pass down the sideline, and everybody says, "Oh, Revis, he's slowing down, he's losing a step." But I mean, let's be real, people. Darrelle Revis, he's 31 years old. I mean, at 31 years old, you need a little bit of oil in those joints. Now, maybe we should change the name from Revis Island to maybe Revis Plateau, maybe Revis Cliff, because to call it an island, it looks like people are going to be vacationing there quite often. So we should probably change that name because it's not as feared as it once was. But Darrelle Revis is still a phenomenal player. This does not change the body of work that he has. However, it does say that Father Time, he comes after everybody, okay? We saw it with my guy Kobe, R.I.P. Mamba, and then we also saw it with Peyton Manning. The greats just have to sit down at some point. AI went to the Hall of Fame and so did Shaq. Makes me feel old. Now, we move along to this weekend's big game in the NFL, the Propane Jungle Rumble. That's what I'll call it because this has become, a much more intense rivalry. It was like that when Joey Porter was playing, Hines Ward, all those guys. So the Steelers versus the Bengals. The Steelers get them at home. A.J. Green's been having a great season. This is a pretty rough rivalry. Pac-Man and Vontaze Burfict, they return. They were the infamous Bengals last year who really ruined the playoff chances of the Bengals by getting those personal foul calls late in the game there. So I really think that they'll have to show that they can keep themselves under control because those are two great players, but they've had up and down careers on and off the field with behavior. So I really hope Pac-Man and Vontaze Burfict can get that under control and just be the great players on defense that they are. Because Vontaze Burfict, let me tell you, I saw a picture of him in college staring down Matt Barkley, pointing in the rain in that Arizona State Sun Devil uniform. He's a tough cat, and I think he's a great linebacker too. But you don't have to be dirty to be great in football. So I really think that they can stifle that play and bring the best out of themselves as far as just playing football. Don't need all this. Need all this. So Le'Veon Bell, he's probably happy he's not playing because he gets hurt every time he plays these guys. And also, can you keep Big Ben ticking? The Bengals D-line with Carlos Dunlap at defensive end and also Geno Atkins on the inside, I really think they'll cause problems to the Steelers. They may get to Big Ben. I think they're a tall defensive line, people with skills, long arms. So anybody with long arms means you can keep that outside arm and leg free, make sure nothing gets outside of you, and funnel everything back inside because we know Big Ben's not a runner. Now also, Antonio strikes back. Now the reason I say that, he did get hurt last year when they played that game against the Bengals. He got hurt on that play against Pac-Man. I want to say it was Pac-Man, not Vontaze. But he did get hurt that play. So I look forward to seeing how he plays, considering that he did get injured against this team. So he probably has a slight chip on his shoulder. Not quite as big as a lay, but just enough like a Dorito. So we'll have to see how that works. I really look forward to seeing that game this weekend. Booty dance or nah, Antonio? Show me what you got. Show me what you got. You did the touchdown twerk. Let's see something else. Now, moving right along to some MLB news. The Cubs. Go Cubs. Now, the Cubbies win the division title last night. I had to bring it up because I'm really happy for them. They've got that Billy Goat curse. Hopefully it's done. It's the end of the Billy Goat blues. They're almost to 100 wins, so they've had an outstanding season. Will Steve Bartman rise from his Chicago coffin and come out, go to a playoff game, go see your Cubs? Put on a different hat, a beanie, toboggan. I'm sure it's getting cold up in Chicago. Nobody know who you are. You haven't been out since '03. So we'll have to see what Steve Bartman does. Maybe he comes out of the shadows and shows his face with that blue hat and that green sweater. I don't know, but I think the Cubs are a great team who have a chance to win the World Series. They've got a lot of talent on that team. Joe Madden's the best teacher. They got to steal Chicago did, getting him from Tampa Bay. Theo Epstein's done a great job building that team. He's a genius. He was the same team that built that '04 Red Sox team that broke their Bambino curse. They've got Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Ben Zobrist, Dexter Fowler. I could go on and on and on. Russell. They've got a lot of hitters, as well as big-time pitchers with Jake Arrieta and also Aroldis Chapman, who throws the heat. And they're both always smoking like broken hoopties. So I really look forward to seeing what the Cubs can do in the playoffs because they've done everything all year. They proved they're an elite team. However, they got to do it when it's count. Break the curse, Cubs. This is the year. Almost 100 wins. Let's get it. Now, we can move over to some college football action. Few games that we got going on, they're pretty big this weekend. Ohio State versus Oklahoma, that's in Norman. That's some Saturday night heat, primetime game. Baker Mayfield versus JT Barrett. We'll definitely have to see how that game goes. I really think that the Ohio State defense, they'll struggle a little bit with Samaje Perine. However, I do think the Oklahoma defense will struggle a little bit with JT Barrett because he's a guy that's been in that offense, knows how to run it for Urban Meyer. It doesn't matter that they're a little bit younger this year. He's a guy that understands football, understands the offense, what Ohio State's trying to do. I think that'll be a tough environment for the Buckeyes. The Sooners, they'll show some of that Mayfield magic. Also, we've got Bama versus Ole Miss, Colorado versus Michigan. I really look forward to seeing Colorado come in. I think they're much improved in the Pac-12. They've won their first 2 games by a blowout score. The Buffaloes, they look pretty good this year, so we'll have to see how they are. Now, Oregon versus Nebraska, they'll have to go to Cornhuskerville. Then we've got a tricky turf tuna game. Miami versus Appalachian State. A lot of people have said things about Tennessee because they struggle with Appalachian State, but I guarantee you Appalachian State will cause Miami to struggle as well, having them come to Boone, North Carolina. Biggest game in Boone in a long time, since the Armani Edwards, Brian Quick days. I really look forward to seeing what Miami does facing that adversity in Boone, North Carolina against a jacked-up Mountaineers team. So we'll have to definitely see. Now, live in Louisville from the pit, College Game Day, Zono Sports will be there live. Make sure you check out the feed on Instagram at Zono Sports. It's number 2 Florida State versus the number 10 Louisville Cardinals. DeAndre Francois versus Lamar Action Jackson. That's what they're calling him. Now, and that man is all about action. If you saw the special on SportsCenter, he let you know, took you around the campus. I really think this guy he wants a spotlight. He embraces the spotlight. He's somebody who does not mind getting that highlight moment, getting that nice cut to the outside of the field and taking it 99 yards on the sideline. He's got that inside of him. So when you have that dog, you're going to be successful at the collegiate level. Now, also, they've got better athletes for Florida State, better athletes against Louisville. All that hurdling, jumping over people. You jump over a guy against Florida State, you will get tagged when you come down and touch the ground. And also, there were a lot of passes that I saw that were thrown up in the air short. Florida State will fight for those 50-50 balls. And Lamar Jackson's got to be precise with his accuracy because those DBs, they don't mind going up and fighting for the football. That's where they're playing at a program like Florida State. Now, also, game day jitters. Will that get to the Cards? Will they get too riled up and come out and play too tight, or will they play too loose and give up some early big plays? That's what we'll have to see. I don't know how this game day will affect the Cardinals, with it being the first one in Louisville since, I don't know, they started. So we'll have to see how that affects them on the game day side of things. Now, on another spectrum, there's a better defense. Who will win the game? Who's going to be the better defense, Louisville or Florida State? Because let's face it, they both gave up points this year. Louisville's given up points to Syracuse, and we've had Florida State give up points to Ole Miss as well, first game of the season. So both of them are winners, but they've shown they will give up points. So whoever plays better, the defenses will prevail. Also, Dalvin Cook, what will he do? I think he'll run for 150 by halftime. That's just my personal opinion. Dalvin Cook gets in the kitchen. So I really like FSU to possibly win this game. I think it'll be tight. I think Louisville will compete, but I just think FSU's got a lot of good athletes. But let's not get it twisted. This is in the city. This is where I'm stationed. So it would be nice if the Cards won because, nice parties, a little bit of Cards, bouncing on Broadway. That'll be nice. However, I have to give the honest opinion. I think Florida State will come in, handle business like they did with Jameis Winston a few years ago and possibly take it. But I think the Cards can win this game as well. They can win this game. It will be a tight game. Whoever makes the big plays in the tough moments, that'll be the team that comes out victorious. So we'll have to see how game day starts. Now, make sure you all watch Game Day Live because I'll be there. Now, next show, we'll have a weekend recap of our Sofa Sweet Treats, a.k.a. Foosball. Make sure you tune in, watch the Zono Sports Show this Monday morning while we recap all the weekend action, college football, NFL. Thank you so much for watching Zono Sports Show, where Zonos.